Hello, Wysteria here, guys. Welcome back to Fables. And please note, you can find me on Spotify. You can find me on Google Podcasts, on Anchor, and most podcast streaming networks. I am on there as Wysteria Energy Twister, where you can listen to non-stop playlists for you to sleep to. And you can pick many different playlists. So, if you haven't yet checked out my podcast, feel free to do so, and please leave me a nice review. I would appreciate that. So let's continue with the fables. The blacksmith and his dog. A blacksmith had a little dog, which used to sleep when his master was at work, but was very wide awake indeed when it was time for meals. One day his master pretended to be disgusted at this, and when he had thrown him a bone as usual, he said, "What on earth is the good of a lazy cur like you? When I am hammering away at my anvil, you just curl up and go to sleep. But no sooner do I stop for a mouthful of food, and you wake up and wag your tail to be fed." Apparently the lesson in that is, those who will not work deserve to starve. That's an interesting lesson. Probably don't do that. The stag at the pool. A thirsty stag went down to pool to drink. As he bent over the surface, he saw his own reflection in the water, and was struck with admiration for his fine, spreading antlers. But at the same time, he felt nothing but disgust for the weakness and slenderness of his legs. While he stood there looking at himself, he was seen and attacked by a lion. But in the chase which ensued, he sooner drew away from his pursuer, and kept his lead as long as the ground over which he ran was open and free of trees. But coming presently into the wood, he was caught by his antlers in the branches, and fell a victim to the teeth and claws of his enemy. "Woe is me," he cried with his last breath. "I despised my legs, which might have saved my life, but I gloried in my horns, and they have proved my ruin." The lesson in that is, what is worth most is often valued least. The dog and the shadow. A dog was crossing a plank bridge over a stream with a piece of meat in his mouth, when he happened to see his own reflection in the water. He thought it was another dog with a piece of meat twice as big. So he let go his own and flew at the other dog to get the larger piece. But of course, all that happened was that he got neither, for one was only a shadow, and the other was carried away by the current. Interesting little story. But, maybe he did think the shadow was another dog. I've definitely seen where dogs look in a mirror and think it's another dog. The peacock and Juno. Juno is a god, by the way. The peacock was greatly discontented because he had not a beautiful voice like the nightingale, and he went and complained to Juno about it. "The nightingale's song," said he, "is the envy of all the birds, but whenever I utter a sound I become a laughing stock." The goddess tries to console him by saying, "You have not, it is true, the power of song, but then you far excel all the rest in beauty. Your neck flashes like the emerald, and your splendid tail is the marvel of gorgeous colour." But the peacock was not appeased. "What is the use," said he, "of being beautiful with a voice like mine?" Then Juno replied with a shade of sternness in her tone, "Fate has allotted to all their destined gifts, to yourself beauty, to the eagle strength, and to the nightingale song, and so unto all the rest is their degree. But you alone are dissatisfied with your portion. Make then no more complaints. For if your present wishes were granted, you would quickly find cause for fresh discontent. And that's basically saying the peacock was never going to be happy regardless, because he was a complainer. And Juno, it means Saint Juno, god or goddess. Either or either, it doesn't really matter. The Bear and the Fox. A bear was once bragging about his generous feelings and saying how refined he was compared with other animals. There is, in fact, a tradition that a bear will never touch a dead body. A fox who heard him talking in this strain smiled and said, "My friend, when you are hungry, I only wish you would confine your attention to the dead and leave the living alone." The lesson in that is a hypocrite deceives no one but himself. So true. The Ass and the Old Peasant. An old peasant was sitting in a meadow, watching his ass, which was grazing close by, when all of a sudden he caught sight of an armed man stealthily approaching. He jumped up in a moment and begged the ass to fly with him as fast as he could, or else, said he, we shall both be captured by the enemy. But the ass just looked round lourily and said, "And if so, do you think they'll make me carry heavier loads than I have to now?" "No," said his master. "Oh, well then," said the ass, "I don't mind if they do take me, for I shan't be any worse off." Therefore, not saving his master. The Ox and the Frog. Two little frogs were playing about at the edge of a pool when an ox came down to the water to drink. By accident, he trod on one of them and crushed the life out of them. Well, the one. When the old frog missed him, she asked his brother where he was. "He's dead, mother," said the little frog. "An enormous big creature with 4 legs came to our pool this morning and trampled him down in the mud." "Enormous, was he? Was he as big as this?" said the frog, puffing himself out to look as big as possible. "Oh yes, much bigger," was the answer. The frog puffed herself out still more. "Was he as big as this?" said she. "Oh yes, mother, much bigger," said the little frog. And yet again she puffed and puffed herself out, till she almost was as round as a ball, as big as she began, but then she just burst on the spot. That's that one. I'm not sure what that would mean, other than maybe don't burst your own bubble. You know, it's the only thing that I can sort of think of. Hercules and the wagoner. A wagoner was driving his team along a muddy lane with a full load behind them when the wheels of his wagon sank so deep in the mire that no efforts of his horses could move them. As he stood there, looking helplessly on and calling loudly at intervals upon Hercules for assistance, the god himself appeared and said to him, "Put your shoulder to the wheel, man, and goad on your horses, and then you may call on Hercules to assist you. If you won't lift a finger to help yourself, you can't expect Hercules or anyone else to come to your aid." And the lesson is, heaven helps those who help themselves. And that's true. The pomegranate, the apple tree, and the bramble. A pomegranate and an apple tree were disputing about the quality of their fruits, and each claimed that its own was better than the other. High words were passed between them, and a violent quarrel, an imminent scrabble, started, when a bramble impudently poked its head out of the neighbouring hedge and said, "There, there, that's enough, my friends. Don't let us quarrel." And that's it. I mean, That's like the actual fable. And there's no lesson there, so I don't know what it means. The lion, the bear, and the fox. A lion and a bear were fighting for possession of a kid when they had both seized at the same moment. The battle was long and fierce, and at length both of them were exhausted and lay upon the ground severely wounded and gasping for breath. A fox had all the time been prowling round and watching the fight, and when he saw the combatants laying there too weak to move, he slipped in and seized the kid and ran off with it. They looked on helplessly, and one said to the other, "Here we've been mauling each other all this while, and no one the better for it, except the fox." See, foxes are smart and quite brainy, aren't they? The kid again, bear in mind, it's not actually a kid, it's a goat or a young goat. Anyway, that's this lot of fables done. Please hit that like, share if you can, and if you've not subscribed, please consider doing so. And if you're on my podcast, you can head over to YouTube, where you can see pictures on the screen as well as me reading the fables. That's Wysteria, Energy Twister, on podcasts and on YouTube. I have the same name. Many blessings.